So I want to bring in my guest, though. We are joined with Arnaud Develay. I am, come on. I'm glad that you could join me. Arnaud Develay, he is, I'm sorry, give me 1 second. My calendars are screwing up on me. There we are. He is an author, political analyst, and international lawyer specializing in international criminal law. His latest book is Foreign Entanglements, Biden, Ukraine, and the Fracturing of American Political Consensus. How you doing, Arnaud? You doing okay this morning or this evening?
Actually, this afternoon. I'm fine,
Yeah,
Jamal. How are you?
I'm doing well, actually. I've been watching, I don't want to say a certain amount of glee, but I guess the audience could kind of see it, so it's no point in me lying. Watching Israel get taken to pieces. They decided to sucker punch a country. They thought the war would be over within 12 hours. And we are 3 days in, and Iran is now at the point of hitting them in the broad daylight, even beside headquarters, which, from my point of view, is fantastic. Um, that sounds brutal, but I've watched people get killed every day. And they're still killing people to this day. Like 100 people were slaughtered just within the last 24 hours. So I've been paying attention to this very closely and seeing what is happening. As the question is, what does Trump do? Is Trump going to come in and save his proxy, or is Trump going to let it, be militarily defeated? And at this point, I don't have an answer for that question. My assumption is yes, he goes in, and even that becomes unpredictable on its face. But I didn't bring you on for this, unless you want to make a comment on this.
Yes, well, I mean, what can we say? Summarily, that hasn't been said yet. Just to your question, things don't look too good, to be honest. Not least owing to Trump feeling like he has to somehow catch his own fall through the branches, because the
Yes.
Israelis essentially just pulled the rug from under him and allowed him for a while to think he was in control, when in fact, from the get-go, we can retroactively say now he never was in control of anything. And so now he's finding himself like a deer caught in the headlights, and he has to overcompensate because
Yep.
obviously, he's Mr. Tough Guy. The problem is it's a cacophony. His communication is a disaster, and I'm not going to discuss the very fact of doing foreign policy using a true social platform, which is on its face ridiculous. But
It's absurd, right?
you
It's so
know,
absurd. It's so childish. Like the notion. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's so
the,
absurd.
the very notion that after, as you mentioned, the Iranians being sucker punched, these very Iranians would now say, sure, let's just assume nothing happened, and let's just sit down and what was that about that Iranian this nuclear deal offer of yours? Yeah, I think we're going to look into this now. When the train has left the station. I mean,
Yeah.
what has happened since Thursday night, Eastern Saving Times, is a vindication that Iran should, despite its religious prohibition on the issue, seriously consider, one, leaving the NPT, and two, manufacture a couple of devices as promptly as possible, because they have to reestablish deterrence. And right now, they have none of that. Right now, they are back against the wall. There's no indication that the Israelis are going to stop. Why? Because they know that the longer these things escalate, the more all of their um, proxies in the US, in the US Congress, in the press, in the think tank, this huge machine is, as we speak, getting started. And we are hearing echoes of what happened 20 years ago prior to the war in Iraq.
Hmm.
And now we have this situation where even the main jewel in Trump's crown, which was Tulsi Gabbard, who was touted as someone with impeccable record and integrity and attachment to not stay away from the politicization of intelligence. She's now being thrown under the bus.
Yep.
So the real question now, I would guess, I mean, I'm just somewhat throwing something up in the air here, but she should resign in protest, and she should go public and do a darn best to try to stop this war that seems every hour now inevitable.
Yeah. I mean, he effectively said, I don't care what my DNI said. I don't care what she said. And he's like, that's amazing, right? Like, I don't care what she
That's
said.
her job.
That's her job.
That's her job. And she came out with a NIE, sorry, National Intelligence Estimate, like in March, like 2 months ago. Usually, this is a combination, the work product of over 13, 15 agencies now. I don't know how many agencies they have.
Yeah.
And usually, it is so comprehensive in its scope and thoroughness that they, on average, release one every 4 years. So, I mean, you've got as fresh, as updated an evaluation on the issue that pertains to what's going on right now as can be. And despite that, so let's be honest. I think his presidency, I mean, if he does not rectify course like quickly and in a radical fashion, that presidency is over before it even began. And more than the presidency, this could be the opening of the gates of hell, because Iran is not Iraq, as we can see now after the initial surprise. Iran has, after following 18 hours, has recalibrated. They've proceeded to arrest scores of infiltration cells. And it seems that they are now proceeding to methodically overwhelm the Israeli anti-air defense systems, with more and more sophisticated waves of launches, and using more and more. And from what we understand, they're starting using types of missiles we haven't seen before.
Yeah, these are old. These are like 10 years old.
Yeah, right now they're doing what NATO was doing in Ukraine the last 3 years. They're getting rid of all the old stocks. But I think now we're about to start seeing appearing the new stuff, the new wares. And so hence the sense of panic in Tel Aviv, because this wasn't supposed to be going like that. We got so drunk on our own Kool-Aid. We've had such an easy way through all the countries before that, that they're in denial. They're in denial as to what's going on, and on top of it, the guy at the top is in this kind of double down, trying to up the ante logic for all kind of reasons. I guess messianic reason, political reason, personal reason, hubris reason. The guy doesn't want to be perceived historically as having lost face, essentially. And I would surmise also, probably to the extent they have such a rabid sense of anti-Arab, to be sure, anti-Muslim, anti-Persian, that it's really scary, because this creates a mental environment where there's no room for what you might call it, objectivity and rationality. So Trump could do something. It could rise to the occasion. I mean, and just make sure that they're not being resupplied. But that might sound easy like this, just to say it. But when you understand the environment in Washington and how much the lobby, controls pretty much. I mean, he could issue a decree, and not unlike what happened in France under General de Gaulle, bearing on the same country in the Middle East at the time, following the Six-Day War. There was an arms embargo that was decreed, and but the whole French system was so infiltrated that most of the orders, most of the instructions coming from the top never really quite got where they were supposed to be going. And so I'm assuming that in the US these days, on the same issue, it's probably times 10 in terms of infiltration and interference. And so there we are. This is where we are now. This is where we are.
Give me your take on something else before I move over to Ukraine. I have compared the Israeli government to effectively Nazis. They have a war machine. They've used that war machine to kill women and children in some of the most heinous ways possible. They've starved populations. They've created camps. They've shot starving people. I can't even show you the videos that came out today because there's so many dead kids and people just laying on the ground where Israel has shot over 100 within 24 hours. And they've done this day in, day out for 2 years. When that guy got raped in that jail cell, I don't know if you remember this, you had other people go to rescue them. And when they put it on TV asking, hey, is it okay to rape Palestinians? The majority of the population said, yes, it is okay to do that. And so when I look at what they've been doing, they've been acting with impunity. And so I didn't think they were going to be rational actors. I thought they were going to act like Hitler's frame of reference. Hey, we don't really have the logistics to do this, but the moment that we, invade Ukraine, the Soviet Union is just going to collapse for no reason. That seemed to be what they thought. That one bombing raid, one sucker punch, was going to be enough to take down Iran. And if you notice, Donald Trump was crowing. He's like, oh, I told them that they should have taken a deal. I told them this and I told them that. And they didn't want to take my deal. I mean, he was crowing, like full-throated. He was supposed to be acting as if he didn't know anything about it for some level of political distance to it. He couldn't do that. He was a peacock. He was like, I'm going to take credit for this. This is going to be the diminishment of Iran. And within 48 hours, you get a flip. We didn't know anything about this. And people were like, does he have dementia? Like, what is wrong with him? As you say, he's doing foreign policy on Twitter and Truth Social, and he's giving these harebrained responses while his proxy...
But even on this particular issue, the one that you just mentioned, the Israelis actually within 24 hours said, no, we told him. He knew.
Yeah,
cannot say he didn't know. He knew. We told him.
They threw him.
And the guy is just like, so I mean, I don't know what they've got on him, but I mean, obviously somebody stabs you in public, and when I say in public, it's in front of billions of people, and you're just not reacting. You're taking it, and you're just kind of like, it's surreal, to be honest. It's just absolutely. I mean, if it wasn't such a grave situation, it would be hilarious. But the problem is,
what do you think happens with this? By the way, do you think because honestly, the main question is not whether or not Israel can maintain this. They're being militarily defeated. To me, the main question is whether Donald Trump gets involved in order to save this proxy. Where do you fall on this? Do you think the political weight, like you said, the hubris, the humiliation, that all of these things just override good sense, and he fully believes that he has to double down, in which case a bombing raid on Iran would be enough to get them to back down? I mean, for God's sake, Russia and China are giving them weapons hand over fist. China has been bringing in these huge airplanes immediately when this kicked off. I think they're going to run into a buzzsaw. Give me your thoughts.
Well, first of all, let's be clear. It's not about the nuclear program anymore. It's about regime change, as it was always all about. Okay, so at least that much is out of the way now. So Iran is fighting for survival, but Iran is not an isolated element in the geopolitical concert. There are countries next to Iran who would not see kindly having a pro-Western regime next to their doors, i.e. Pakistan.
That's
who
right.
has been making some noises, although they closed their borders, from what I understand. So they got to be careful not to take the bait and somehow make statements which could come back and haunt them down the road. But obviously, no, that's not a good thing for them, because then they would be surrounded by Afghanistan to the north, Western-friendly Iran to the west, and India to the south. So that would be, geopolitically speaking, a huge setback for Pakistan. But yeah, as you said, I mean, China is not going to take it lying down. They might not be making a lot of noise. It doesn't mean they're just standing pat and doing nothing. I mean, they signed a 25-year deal with Iran in 2022, bearing on getting oil to power their economy. So they need Iran. Iran is a major node of the One Belt One Road project. Russia, well, they need access to the Indian Ocean, and this requires that the current government in Iran remains intact, so they can get this north-south corridor finished. So everybody's got a stake into this. Now, the problem is that since the Israelis cannot step back from the brink for basically a whole slew of reasons, but to make it to summarize it, is that everything for the last 25 years, going back to 9/11, has been building up to where we are now. The taking out of Iran is Benjamin Netanyahu's crowning achievement as King Bibi, as the avatar, the Zion, of the revisionist Zionist vision of a greater Israel, which aims to establish a Pax Judaica in the region, become a regional superpower, control all the gas and petroleum routes, to such an extent that they would not, on its face, really need the U.S. anymore. After that, they'd be able to fly on their own. They would just need the manpower to administer those new territories. But this is it. This is where we are. Because when you see someone like Netanyahu, who's been going on to Congress for years and years to advocate for regime change wars, times and times again, and getting his way, over time, the guy has built, a sense of himself as, no one can refuse me. I'm not going to stop now when I'm just basically reaching the apex of my life's work. Let's always recall this meeting that he had in 1990 in New York with the late Rabbi Schneerson, someone who was at the time considered the embodiment of Mashiach, the one Messiah that the Jewish people is waiting for.
Yeah.
We told him, hey, you have to work harder. You have to work harder to bring the advent of Mashiach. And the guy said, well, I'm doing it where the best. He was still kind of like, went behind the heel politically at the time. But he said, yeah, no, there's still some light, some daylight in the day. You can just keep working at it, keep working. So this goes way back, and the problem we have in Western culture, this kind of instantaneous, postings, reactions, short media sequences. One sequence replaces another. We don't understand how some of those people think in terms of decades. It's a religious project. Zionism, when people say no, Zionism is a political ideology that has nothing to do with Judaism, I beg to differ. Zionism is somehow the corrective measure put in place when the obstacle that was presented by the fact that the people of Israel could not go back to the promised land until Mashiach appeared, to the extent they become themselves the emanation of God. The Jewish people is as a whole God, within Orthodox interpretation of Torah. So they accomplish the will of God, and therefore there's no need to wait for an outside factor to occur as a condition precedent for us to go back. We go back because we are fulfilling the prophecy as we speak. That's the idea. And so political Zionism and its revisionist tendency embodied by Netanyahu, and before that, his own father. And his father's boss at the time, guys like Jabotinsky, they cynically exploited this interpretation to advance their political agenda. But what we have today, whereas the project started as some kind of kumbaya, kibbutz, Bund oriented experience, has turned into a millennial, apocalyptic, a religious project. It's a religious project. All the people that he has in his cabinet now are all members of ultra-Orthodox parties.
The White
And
House.
yes, exactly. So you cannot, in that sense, and to be fair, on the other side, since there's another side in the equation, the Iranian under the Islamic Revolution are a 12er branch of Shia Islam. So they're waiting for Imam Mahdi, who's going to redeem the world. And in part of the redeeming of the world, and also this is one of the pillars of the Islamic Revolution from the get-go, is the liberation of Palestine.
Right.
So you've got basically two irresistible forces that are being drawn to each other, and the only outcome possible objectively is a major conflagration.
I know, but
short
one
of
has to do with the liberation of a group that's been maligned.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying, as far as the driving ideology and the ulterior motive, and the on both sides, it's let's say it's they are ready to die. One side is willing to die to live, to be able to turn back and say we've led an honorable life, and there's nothing on this earth that matters to us because the reward is in the beyond. And another side was like, if we're not going to get our way, then we're going to take everybody down with us. We're either going to get it our way, or nobody's going to be left alive to see us defeated. So this is where we are now. I mean, let's so what might happen? That takes us to what might happen. Well, for the time being, they are going to up the ante onto each other. So it's going to escalate. The longer the Americans are perceived from Tel Aviv's perspective as dragging their feet, the more likely Tel Aviv is going to have to resort to false flag to drag them in.
Yes.
Because they know that on their own, unless they are willing to do the assumption option, they cannot defeat Iran, especially the longer the conflict goes on, because we've seen that in the Iraq-Iran war in the 1980s. I mean, the Iranians, they can go at it for years and years and bleed until they win, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So the Israelis do not have the manpower and the mental fortitude to keep up with Iran. This is impossible. So they need a quick knockout. They need this kind of wonder weapon, as they said back in the 1940s. This kind of this miracle. And the miracle is going to basically to try to get the U.S. dragged in by the man of their hair, like you say, the man of their hair. This is a term they use in their own religious writings. By the man of their hair, the great warlords, the great warlords of the East and the West will do everything in their power not to get dragged into the conflict. But in the end, they will succumb and take part into the conflict. And out of the ashes, Israel will emerge victorious. This is their. I'm just quoting from the rabbis here.
Right.
You have to listen to them talk. This is how they perceive it, and they are rejoicing about this conflict with Iran among religious circles there, because it means that the return of Mashiach is close. And Mashiach is, basically Mashiach is has returned, and they've prepared the third temple. They've prepared all they have a high priest class that's already there. They have the rituals. They've cleansed some of the utensils, tools they're going to be using for the liturgy and the ceremonials. They've selected those red cows. Yeah. No, but I mean, you have to. You have
No,
to, you
I'm
know,
laughing because I've seen them make those red cows like when they're
yeah.
like making them.
But this is no joke. That's
No,
what I'm saying.
I've seen them do it.
It's
Oh,
crazy. It's crazy stuff.
red
But
cows.
it is, it's real. It's real. It's real to them.
Well, they breed them. They like breed the cows to be red in order to help, Jesus along or whatever.
Whatever it takes. Yeah, everything. Nothing is left to happenstance. Every detail is handled with
And they gave
particular
these
care.
black jobs nuclear weapons.
Well, the French did.
Just
Unfortunately,
outrageous.
yeah,
Just
the French
outrageous.
did. But that's another story.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about Russia for a bit. Because what this means is that a lot of support from the standpoint of cognition, attention, weapons, air defense, air defense missiles have been drained away from Ukraine, where Zelensky is screaming like an opera singer with nobody paying attention to him at all. And Russia has been delivering brutal, brutal shots, every bit as bad as Iran has been delivering on Israel. But again, nobody sees it. It's astonishing. Give me your take on, like, are you optimistic that, I mean, because, okay, let me say it this way. There's a geopolitical context in the way that I'm looking at this, that the United States believed that it could bleed Russia dry using Ukraine as a battering ram. That didn't work. They failed, but they continued to still have this kind of attrition thing. They didn't care about Ukrainian lives. So it didn't matter to them if every last Ukrainian died, if every last Ukrainian woman died, if every last 18-year-old, they didn't care one iota. From their point of view, we get to drain Russia. Okay, well, now the US has a problem of the queen having too many responsibilities. She's a powerful piece, but she can't cover two things at once. She only gets to move once, right? And now you have a weak Europe that can't do it. And you have the US that now has to focus its attention on Iran, which means it has to take its attention away from Ukraine. So the original objective was never accomplished. And the US has just pulled out of negotiations with Russia. So it seems that they've just pretty much given up the ghost of the entire enterprise. Where now they're like, oh my God, Iran is about to, Israel's about to take an L. Like there's a geopolitical consequence to the way this is working out, where the empire is freaking out and is desperate and is believing on some level that if they can take out Iran, that they can isolate or at the very least damage Russia and damage China, and that Iran is the weak link in that. But again, this is them all over the place because initially they were trying to do that to Russia. Give me a take on that. I mean, do you think that this is pulling support away from Ukraine, meaning Russia has a free hand now in Ukraine because all attention has just been sucked away from this? And what do you think the geopolitical consequences of this is, especially if Iran doesn't collapse?
Well, I think you touched on it. Is that essentially the two fronts are linked? It's a
Yeah.
world war, and so you get kicked out of of the house by the window. You come back by another way, the cave or whatever. And so the Ukrainian pathway has proven itself to be a major failure with catastrophic consequences, which have in turn stressed, revealed, exposed the West moral bankruptcy, economic frailties. And so now they are more, if anything, motivated than ever to try to pull out of the jaws of defeat to some kind of hypothetical victory by taking down Iran. Because as you said very rightly, Iran is to be, at least from their point of view, considered the weak link between China, Iran, Russia trio. And taking down Iran would inflict ultimately that strategic defeat against Russia. So it's a good trade from the Western powers' point of view. They could politically even buy themselves more time in as far as their own population is concerned. Because again, the byproduct of the military victory against Iran, so they think at least, would produce access to resources, untold resources,
Right.
geopolitical leeway, and everything that comes with it. Above and beyond the symbolic aspect of taking down, a country which for years and not without, ground, being presented as unpregnable.
Hmm.
So I think they're going full broke. That's why everybody's involved. That's why the French, the Germans, the UK, the Arab states in the regions, but for a few, minor actors there, they're all pulling in the same direction. Although they are not basically making any noise, they're trying to remain discreet about it. But everybody is on board. Yes, definitely. So yeah, it's just a variation of that same old configuration that we've had for the last 3 years in Eastern Europe. Except that now and to your point that of course Zelensky is out. Well, it's almost like Captain America. For a while he was replaced by a guy called the U.S. agent, and all the readers were like, "Who the hell is the U.S. agent?" Guess, and the guy, I mean, the character as created by the writers was such a jerk. I mean, Steve
Yeah.
Rogers was such this noble, humble.
It's like the epitome of what it means to be an American.
Yeah,
Right.
right. I
Right.
mean, meek, a generous, a civic person. U.S.
Yeah.
agent was just this jackass, who used to. So, well, U.S. agent was Zelensky, but Captain America, Bibi, has been brought back, and so everything is good and well in this world again. I guess it's the world of cartoon, geopolitical cartoons. So they're back to the fundamentals. They're back to Bibi. With Bibi, we can go. We can make sure the job's gonna get done with Bibi. He's never let us down. Whereas that guy there, we've seen a lot of him for the last 3 years.
Oh, right.
We've given him everything he needs, and he hasn't been able to deliver. And it's just that's just not gonna work.
Oh, that's too funny. It's like we tried with this guy. We tried. We gave him
God knows we tried.
$100
Yeah.
Let's trust in BB. Trust in BB.
Bibi can't go wrong with Bibi. Bibi is a pro.
Man. That is
The
hilarious.
original Captain America. Yeah.
That is so funny. Because that's what it feels like, right? Like they just like, all right, let's drop him. Let's go to BB. BB can do it, and we can damage both by going to BB now. It's
That's
desperation, right? It just comes across as desperate. Arnaud,
well, it's copium. They're trying to reconcile themselves with a situation that looks increasingly like it's slipping out of control.
yeah,
And so, it's how to get out of a hole. Well, dig a deeper hole. Right?
keep digging.
That's pretty much it. That's it.
You
Keep
get
digging.
to China at some point, right? Just keep digging. Arnaud, man, thank
By
you for this,
Justin.
man. Arnaud Develay, he's author, political analyst, international lawyer specializing in international criminal law. His latest book, Foreign Entanglements, Biden, Ukraine, and the Fracturing of America's Political Consensus. Thank you for this. You have a good day, okay?
Thank you, Jamal. See you soon.
Oh, absolutely. All